The wind howled across the frozen plains, carrying with it a biting chill that could pierce through even the thickest layers of animal hide. For anyone living in this harsh world, the coming of night was no gentle transition but a stark challenge to survival. Fires, the modern symbol of warmth and comfort, were absent from this frozen landscape, or at least absent as we understand them. How did a species like the Neanderthals, often portrayed as rugged yet primitive, endure winters that lasted for months, where temperatures could plunge well below freezing and snow stretched uninterrupted across the horizon? The very image of a Neanderthal settlement seems contradictory to our expectations. No flickering flames illuminating caves, no steady heat warding off frostbite, no smoke curling into the night sky to mark a safe haven. Yet evidence in archaeological records tells a different story. Neanderthals survived and thrived across Europe and Asia for tens of thousands of years, not as fragile wanderers, but as resilient hunters and gatherers whose adaptations allowed them to withstand environments that would challenge even modern humans. One might imagine them huddled in dark, damp caves, shivering through long nights, but that picture is incomplete. Neanderthals were masters of their environment in ways subtle and sophisticated ways that left traces for us to uncover today. From carefully chosen shelters that blocked the worst of the wind to layered clothing fashioned from animal hides, every decision they made was a survival strategy honed over generations. And yet, questions remain. How did they manage body heat without consistent fire? What strategies kept infants and the elderly alive through the bitterest cold? How did they maintain a sense of community and care in a world that demanded vigilance at every moment? Even their very physiology, the stocky build, shorter limbs, and broad chests hints at evolutionary adaptations to conserve heat, but it cannot fully explain the ingenuity evident in their daily lives. Every artifact, every remnant of a campsite offers clues. Hearths, when present, were small and perhaps temporary. Clothing, crafted with skill, insulated more efficiently than we might assume. Their diets, rich in protein and fat, were carefully balanced to sustain high energy needs in frigid conditions. Survival was not a matter of luck. It was the result of careful observation, repeated experimentation, and cultural knowledge passed down across generations. In this story, we uncover the world of the Neanderthals not as a simple tale of brute strength against nature, but as a profound account of intelligence, adaptation, and endurance. By piecing together their methods, we begin to understand the resilience of a species often underestimated, whose lessons about survival remain strikingly relevant today. As we explore the frozen landscapes they called home, a question emerges. What can their endurance teach us about human ingenuity in the face of relentless challenges? How did a people without fire keep warm, safe, and alive through winters that seemed unending? The Ice Age stretched across Europe and parts of Asia in a vast expanse of snow, ice, and frozen tundra. For Neanderthals, this was not a temporary season but a defining reality that shaped every aspect of daily life. The time period we focus on spans roughly 400,000 to 40,000 years ago, a stretch of history marked by repeated glacial cycles that reshaped landscapes, redirected rivers, and challenged the survival of every species that inhabited the northern continents. Within this frozen expanse, Neanderthals carved out lives of remarkable resilience, leaving behind traces that hint at strategies for enduring winters that modern humans would find extreme. Neanderthals were concentrated primarily in regions of Western Europe, Central Europe, and Western Asia, but archaeological evidence also shows them in colder northern territories. Their habitats varied from rocky caves perched on cliffs to open plains dotted with temporary shelters. These sites were not chosen at random. They reflected careful consideration of wind patterns, access to water sources, proximity to game, and natural insulation provided by the landscape. Shelter itself became a critical element of survival, often as important as the food they hunted or the clothing they wore. The absence of permanent fire in some regions has long puzzled researchers. While evidence of hearths exists in certain sites, their size and frequency suggest that fire was not always a constant companion. Instead, Neanderthals adapted their behavior and physical strategies to cope with cold. Their stocky bodies, wide shoulders, and shorter limbs allowed for heat conservation, while their robust musculature and higher metabolic rates supported the intense physical demands of hunting and daily survival in freezing temperatures. The human form itself was, in many ways, a living adaptation to a frozen world. Food was central to their endurance. Neanderthals were primarily hunters of large mammals, including bison, mammoths, and reindeer, supplemented by gathered plant foods when available. High-protein, high-fat diets not only fueled their muscular bodies but also contributed to internal heat production. Evidence from isotopic analysis of bones indicates that animal fat may have been a critical component during the coldest months, suggesting that diet was a deliberate strategy for thermal survival. Hunting in packs allowed for more efficient kills, distribution of resources, and shared protection against predators and the environment alike. Clothing, too, played a vital role. While the precise methods of production remain partially speculative, cut marks on bones and evidence of high processing point to the creation of layered garments from animal skins. These early clothes were functional rather than decorative, designed to trap heat and allow mobility across snowy terrain. Footwear, likely constructed from flexible hides, protected against frostbite and allowed extended travel in search of game or firewood. These innovations demonstrate an intimate understanding of materials and environmental demands. The social structure of Neanderthal groups reinforced survival. Communities were relatively small but cohesive, consisting of extended families or bands. Cooperation was essential, especially during winter months when gathering food. Building shelters and sharing knowledge about resources determined the survival of the entire group. Elders and skilled hunters likely held important knowledge about migration routes, seasonal resources, and emergency strategies during extreme cold. Caring for the young sick and elderly reflects a level of empathy and social cohesion that enabled the species to persist despite harsh climates. Even the selection of sleeping areas reveals strategic adaptation. Caves and rock shelters provided natural insulation from wind and snow, while layering of hides on the floor offered additional warmth. In open areas, evidence suggests the construction of rudimentary windbreaks or the use of natural terrain features like fallen logs and snowdrifts to create protected microenvironments. Though fire was not always present, these solutions illustrate deliberate and intelligent design to meet the harsh challenges of the environment. Environmental pressures extended beyond temperature. Glacial advance and retreat dramatically altered landscapes, forcing Neanderthals to adapt their routes, hunting strategies, and settlement locations. Rivers froze, forests thinned, and prey migrated to more hospitable areas, requiring a sophisticated understanding of ecological patterns. Observation, memory, and communication within groups allowed Neanderthals to track these shifts and respond proactively rather than reactively. Survival was a constant negotiation with nature, a daily balancing act between risk and reward. The archaeological record also hints at cultural adaptation to winter conditions. Tools crafted from flint and bone were designed for efficiency, minimizing the effort required to process meat, skin animals, and construct shelters. There is evidence of symbolic objects and possible personal adornments, suggesting that even amidst the struggle for physical survival, Neanderthals maintained a cognitive awareness of identity and group cohesion. Such artifacts reflect the integration of practical survival and social complexity in a frozen world. By examining the daily strategies, physiological adaptations, and social dynamics of Neanderthals, we begin to understand a world in which survival was never guaranteed but consistently achieved. They were not passive victims of the Ice Age. They were active participants in shaping their environment to meet its challenges. Their story is one of resilience, ingenuity, and the human capacity to endure even in the most extreme conditions. As we prepare to explore the deeper layers of their lives, from hunting practices to social bonds, from environmental adaptation to technological innovation, the question persists: how did Neanderthals consistently survive winters that seem unimaginable to modern humans? The answer lies not in a single strategy, but in a complex web of adaptation, cooperation, and knowledge passed from one generation to the next. Neanderthals, or Homo neanderthalensis, emerged roughly 400,000 years ago, occupying a wide range of territories across Europe, the Middle East, and parts of Central Asia. They were close relatives of modern humans, sharing a common ancestor but evolving separately, adapting uniquely to the colder climates of the Ice Age. Fossil evidence and genetic studies reveal a robust, muscular species with physical traits optimized for conserving heat, including a broad chest, shorter limbs, and a stocky frame, features that help them maintain internal warmth in the face of relentless winter temperatures. The timeline of Neanderthal habitation is intertwined with repeated glacial cycles. These cycles transform the landscape over tens of thousands of years, alternately expanding ice sheets and opening habitable regions. During glacial peaks, Neanderthals occupied refuges in southern Europe and Western Asia, where the climate, while still harsh, was more manageable. Between these cycles, they expanded into colder regions, demonstrating remarkable adaptability. Each movement required intimate knowledge of the land, migratory patterns of prey, and the availability of critical resources such as water, shelter, and firewood. Neanderthals lived in small, close-knit communities, typically consisting of 10 to 30 individuals. These bands were highly mobile, often moving seasonally to follow game herds or locate materials for toolmaking. Archaeological evidence indicates a pattern of repeated occupation of certain cave sites, suggesting that Neanderthals understood the importance of shelter and its strategic placement. Sites such as La Chapelle-aux-Saints in France, Shanidar in Iraq, and Khabara in Israel reveal structured living spaces, often with evidence of organized hearths, designated areas for butchering, and storage of essential tools and food. Diet played a central role in survival. Neanderthals were primarily carnivorous, hunting large mammals such as mammoths, bison, reindeer, and horses. Stable isotope analysis from fossilized bones indicates a protein-rich diet, high in animal fat, critical for sustaining body heat and energy during freezing winters. Evidence of plant consumption, though less prevalent, shows that they supplemented their diet with seasonal vegetation, nuts, and berries when available. The reliance on hunting large game necessitated close cooperation, coordination, and knowledge of animal behavior, highlighting both intelligence and social cohesion. Tool use was another key factor. Neanderthals employed the Mousterian tool tradition, producing flint implements for cutting, scraping, and hunting. These tools were highly specialized and required careful craftsmanship. The sophistication of their tools suggests a level of planning and skill that challenges earlier stereotypes of Neanderthals as primitive. Beyond hunting, tools were used to process hides for clothing and shelter, manage firewood, and construct temporary windbreaks or other survival structures. Clothing and shelter reflected both cultural and practical adaptation. While direct evidence of clothing is limited, cut marks on animal bones and hides indicate sewing and the use of layered skins to protect against cold. Caves and rock shelters offered natural insulation, with strategic placement away from prevailing winds. Open-air sites suggest the construction of simple shelters using available natural materials, demonstrating ingenuity in the absence of permanent fire or complex architectural solutions. The physiological adaptations of Neanderthals also contributed to their survival. A higher basal metabolic rate helped generate body heat, while large nasal cavities may have warmed inhaled air, mitigating the effects of extreme cold. Their robust musculature not only supported endurance hunting, but also maintained body temperature through constant activity. Infants and children likely benefited from shared warmth within social groups, emphasizing the importance of cooperation and care for vulnerable members. Interpersonal dynamics and cultural practices further reinforce survival. Evidence from burial sites, including those at Shanidar, suggests intentional interment with flowers or symbolic objects, reflecting social cohesion, empathy, and cultural complexity. These practices indicate that Neanderthals valued the lives of community members and invested in knowledge transfer, care, and collective memory-critical elements for enduring harsh winters and unpredictable environments. Mobility and migration were continuous strategies for dealing with environmental challenges. Neanderthals followed seasonal movements of prey, adjusted settlement patterns in response to glacial expansion, and selected sites with access to essential resources. Such mobility required intimate geographic knowledge, the ability to navigate difficult terrain, and communication skills to coordinate group activities. Survival was a constant negotiation with the environment, balancing energy expenditure, risk, and opportunity. Despite their resilience, Neanderthals faced challenges that tested their ingenuity. Ice Age winters were long and harsh, with limited daylight and scarce resources. Predation, accidents, and exposure contributed to mortality, and survival required both individual skill and community cooperation. Archaeological records of healed injuries indicate that members of groups were cared for over extended periods, reflecting social structures that prioritized collective survival over individual strength. By examining the evidence from skeletal remains, fossilized footprints, and archaeological sites, we gain a clearer understanding of the Neanderthal way of life. They were not merely brute hunters enduring the cold. They were intelligent, adaptable, and socially complex humans capable of managing the most challenging environments. Their story illustrates that survival was never accidental. It was the product of deliberate strategies, cultural knowledge, and constant adaptation. As we move into the next sections, we will explore the environmental settings, daily life, and technological innovations that enabled Neanderthals to not only survive, but thrive in a world defined by Ice Age winters. Their resilience provides a window into human ingenuity under extreme conditions and a foundation for understanding the sophisticated strategies that made enduring the Ice Age possible. The Ice Age, a period spanning hundreds of thousands of years, presented a landscape defined by extremes. Europe and parts of Western Asia were blanketed in glaciers, while winds swept across open plains with a force that could strip heat from exposed skin. Neanderthals inhabited this world, adapting to an environment that challenged every aspect of human survival. The geography was varied, from towering mountain ranges and deep river valleys to expansive tundra, steppe, and forested regions. Each terrain offered resources, risks, and unique opportunities for shelter, hunting, and movement. Glacial cycles dramatically shaped the environment. During glacial peaks, ice sheets extended across northern Europe, pushing both flora and fauna southward and limiting habitable zones. Conversely, during interglacial periods, retreating glaciers opened new corridors for migration, hunting, and settlement. The rhythm of glacial advance and retreat dictated the availability of water sources, the migration of prey animals, and the safety of potential shelters. Neanderthals had to maintain a deep understanding of these patterns, ensuring survival across seasonal extremes. The climate was consistently harsh, particularly during winter months. Temperatures often fell well below freezing, accompanied by strong winds and snowfall that could accumulate to several feet. Seasonal daylight varied drastically, with short, dim days in winter and long stretches of sunlight in summer. These conditions affected hunting, foraging, and social routines, influencing the timing of migrations and the selection of shelter locations. The extreme cold also demanded high caloric intake, increased physical activity, and strategic clothing to maintain body heat. Vegetation zones shifted in response to climate fluctuations. Forested regions provided wood for fuel and shelter construction, as well as habitat for smaller prey, while open tundra supported large herbivores essential to Neanderthal diets. The balance between forest and steppe determined the success of hunting and foraging expeditions, requiring keen observation of ecological patterns. Plant availability was seasonal, and Neanderthals likely relied on stored food or preserved meat during the harshest months. Rivers, lakes, and freshwater sources were crucial for survival. Meltwater from glaciers created streams and ponds, while permanent rivers served as reliable locations for drinking water and attracting game. Settlements were often strategically placed near these resources, balancing access to water with protection from predators and exposure to the elements. Ice-covered rivers presented both obstacles and opportunities, acting as natural highways for movement across frozen terrain. Neanderthals also faced environmental hazards beyond cold. Avalanches, sudden storms, and shifting ice posed immediate threats, while seasonal flooding could destroy shelters or force rapid relocation. The presence of predators such as wolves, cave lions, and hyenas required constant vigilance. Survival demanded not only physical adaptations but also cognitive and social strategies for anticipating danger and minimizing risk. Caves and rock shelters provided natural advantages. These structures offered insulation from wind, snow, and precipitation, while their interiors maintained relatively stable temperatures compared with the open air. Archaeological evidence shows that Neanderthals selected caves with south-facing entrances to maximize solar warmth, and some sites display arrangements that suggest windbreaks or partition spaces for sleeping, cooking, and tool use. The careful selection of these shelters demonstrates an acute understanding of microclimates within the broader harsh environment. Open-air settlements required additional ingenuity. Neanderthals constructed temporary shelters from branches, animal hides, and other available materials, often reinforced with rocks or snow walls to block wind. These sites, while more exposed, allowed for proximity to hunting grounds or seasonal resources. Mobility was essential, as these locations were typically used only during favorable conditions or as part of migratory patterns following game herds. The Ice Age also shaped the distribution of prey. Large herbivores such as mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, reindeer, and bison were critical to survival, but their populations fluctuated with climate and glacial movement. Neanderthals tracked these animals, developing knowledge of migration routes, feeding patterns, and seasonal behaviors. Hunting strategies were influenced directly by environmental conditions. Frozen terrain allowed ambush or traps, while deep snow required endurance and cooperation to bring down large game. Even within the landscape, subtle features were leveraged for survival. Rocky outcrops, dense thickets, and riverbanks provided natural cover for stalking prey or hiding from predators. Snowdrifts could be used as insulation for sleeping, while streams and ice formed barriers or pathways that influenced travel and hunting. Each aspect of the environment was integrated into the daily decisions of Neanderthals, illustrating a sophisticated and intuitive understanding of their surroundings. The interplay of climate, geography, and resource distribution created a complex puzzle that Neanderthals navigated with skill. Survival was not a matter of brute strength alone, but of intelligence, observation, and adaptation. The environment dictated food availability, migration patterns, and social structure, and Neanderthals responded with strategies that combined physiology, technology, and culture. Their persistence in such an unforgiving world is a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of early humans. By studying these environmental conditions, we gain insight into the challenges faced by Neanderthals, the decisions they made, and the strategies that allowed them to endure Ice Age winters. The frozen landscapes they inhabited were not merely backdrops to survival. They were active factors shaping behavior, community, and technology. Understanding this environment sets the stage for exploring the specific challenges and conflicts Neanderthals encountered in their daily struggle to live and thrive in a world dominated by ice and snow. Neanderthals faced an environment defined by constant and multifaceted challenges. Ice Age winters brought sub-zero temperatures, relentless winds, and heavy snowfall, making even the simplest daily tasks difficult. Hunting, gathering, and maintaining warmth were never straightforward. Every action carried risk. Without the comfort of consistent fire, they had to rely on physical adaptations, clever use of natural shelter, and social cooperation to endure the extreme cold. Hunting large game was both vital and dangerous. Mammoths, reindeer, and bison provided critical food, hides, and bones. Yet pursuing these animals demanded careful planning, teamwork, and high physical endurance. Ambushers or close-quarter attacks carried the risk of injury or death. Archaeological evidence shows healed fractures and injuries, demonstrating that Neanderthals regularly faced life-threatening accidents while procuring sustenance. Injuries could affect not just an individual but the group's overall survival, emphasizing the importance of cooperation and care for the injured. Scarcity of food during long winters created additional pressure. Game migrated, vegetation was limited, and preservation techniques were rudimentary. Hunger forced Neanderthals to plan meticulously, store surplus when possible, and diversify their diet. They relied on high-calorie animal fats to maintain energy and body heat. Such nutritional strategies were essential, as low-fat diets in extreme cold would have rapidly led to hypothermia or weakened immune systems. The absence or inconsistency of fire posed a unique challenge. Fire provided heat, light, and a means to cook food. Yet archaeological evidence suggests that hearths were small, temporary, or not present at all in some regions. Without reliable fire, Neanderthals had to maximize natural insulation, use layered clothing effectively, and remain physically active to generate body warmth. This limitation amplified the importance of shelters, strategic site selection, and social behaviors that maintained group cohesion and survival. Predators presented another constant threat. Wolves, cave lions, hyenas, and other carnivores inhabited the same territories, drawn by the same prey. Neanderthals had to remain vigilant, balancing the risk of predation against the need to hunt or travel. Their social structures, including cooperative defense and group coordination, mitigated these dangers, but survival was never guaranteed. Even within a cave, a miscalculated approach to a predator could have fatal consequences. Environmental hazards extended beyond predators. Avalanches, sudden storms, and ice collapses were unpredictable and deadly. Flooded streams or broken ice could isolate or trap individuals, requiring knowledge of terrain, weather, and timing to navigate safely. Mobility was both a solution and a challenge. Moving to follow game or resources exposed Neanderthals to extreme conditions, yet staying put risked resource depletion. These decisions demanded foresight, observation, and communication within the group. Social and community dynamics themselves could pose challenges. Small groups had to manage limited resources, balance individual needs against collective survival, and maintain cohesion under stressful conditions. Caring for infants, the elderly, and injured individuals required time and energy, diverting resources from hunting or building shelters. Yet these social investments were critical, ensuring the survival of the group as a whole and enabling the transfer of knowledge across generations. Cold, illness, and injury intersected to create further difficulties. Hypothermia, frostbite, and common injuries could easily become life-threatening without effective remedies or treatment. The harsh environment placed enormous stress on the immune system, increasing vulnerability to disease and infection. Neanderthals responded with pragmatic solutions, using natural remedies when available and relying on community care to nurse individuals back to health. Survival was not just a matter of immediate action, but a continuous management of risk over time. Seasonal changes imposed another layer of challenge. Winters demanded endurance and caloric efficiency, while spring and summer required tracking migration patterns and ensuring storage of food and resources. Glacial expansions could force relocation, while interglacial periods required adaptation to new terrain and prey availability. Knowledge of these patterns was cumulative, passed through oral tradition, observation, and direct experience within family or community networks. The physical and mental demands of this environment also shaped Neanderthal behavior. Constant vigilance, strategic thinking, and endurance were necessary to navigate threats, conserve energy, and maintain group cohesion. The challenges they faced demanded intelligence, cooperation, and resilience, demonstrating that survival in the Ice Age was as much a cognitive and social feat as a physical one. Ultimately, the challenges Neanderthals faced were continuous and interdependent. Extreme weather influenced hunting success. Hunting injuries affected social dynamics. Resource scarcity required mobility, which introduced environmental hazards. Each factor amplified the others, creating a web of pressures that had to be navigated daily. Yet, despite these formidable obstacles, Neanderthals endured for hundreds of thousands of years, leaving behind evidence of a species capable of sophisticated adaptation, ingenuity, and social complexity. By analyzing these challenges, we begin to understand not only the physical hardships of the Ice Age, but also the remarkable resilience and problem-solving skills that define Neanderthal life. Their survival was not accidental, it was the product of deliberate strategies, collaboration, and careful management of risk in a world defined by ice, snow, and uncertainty. Daily life for Neanderthals was a continuous negotiation with the harsh Ice Age environment. Every action, from rising with the first weak light of dawn to settling into sleeping areas at night, was influenced by the need to secure warmth, food, and safety. The absence of consistent fire meant that Neanderthals relied on both physical adaptations and practical ingenuity to meet the demands of survival in sub-zero temperatures. Hunting and foraging dominated daily routines. Groups often divided responsibilities based on age, skill, and experience. Adult males typically participated in tracking and hunting large game, such as reindeer, bison, or even mammoths, requiring stamina, coordination, and intimate knowledge of animal behavior. Females and younger members gathered smaller game, plant-based foods, and essential materials for clothing or shelter. Hunting was rarely solitary. It relied on teamwork to surround prey, drive herds toward traps, or deliver precise attacks with spears and other tools. This collaborative approach maximized efficiency while reducing individual risk. Food preparation was equally essential. Animal carcasses were butchered with precision using flint tools, with portions of meat, fat, and organs distributed according to immediate need and caloric content. Fat, in particular, was a valuable resource for energy and heat production during freezing winters. Evidence of marrow extraction from bones indicates a thorough approach to utilizing all available nutrients. Plant foods, though seasonally limited, supplemented the diet, providing vitamins and minerals necessary for overall health. Preservation techniques such as drying or storing meat in cool, sheltered areas allowed for survival during periods of scarcity. Shelter-shaped daily routines. Caves provided natural insulation and protection from predators, while open-air sites required construction of temporary structures using branches, hides, and other available materials. Within these spaces, areas were likely designated for sleeping, food processing, and tool maintenance. Layering hides and creating windbreaks helped conserve heat, particularly during the long nights. Social cohesion within shelters facilitated shared warmth, with individuals huddling together in strategic arrangements to reduce exposure to cold. Clothing was critical to daily survival. While no direct garments have survived, cut marks on bones and evidence of hide preparation suggest that Neanderthals crafted layered clothing and footwear to protect against frostbite. Hides were likely sewn with bone needles or thorns, and multiple layers allowed mobility without sacrificing warmth. Attention to clothing reflects a sophisticated understanding of insulation and thermal management. Daily life also included constant observation of the environment. Tracking animal movements, monitoring seasonal changes, and assessing weather conditions were necessary to plan hunting trips, relocations, and shelter construction. Such awareness required memory, communication, and experience, with elders likely playing a critical role in teaching younger members about patterns of survival. Knowledge passed through generations ensured that each member understood how to navigate the environment effectively. Tool maintenance was a routine task. Flint, bone, and wooden implements required regular sharpening, repair, and replacement. Tools were essential for hunting, but also for processing hides, constructing shelters, and preparing food. The Mousterian toolkit, highly specialized for efficiency, illustrates how daily life integrated practical innovation with survival needs. Mastery of these tools was essential to maintain independence from environmental pressures. Social interactions were embedded in everyday activities. Cooperation was necessary for hunting, but also for caring for children, injured individuals, and the elderly. Evidence of healed injuries indicates that Neanderthals tended to one another, reinforcing group cohesion and ensuring that every member contributed to survival. Communication, whether through gestures, vocalizations, or early forms of language, enabled coordination and planning, making social organization a central aspect of daily life. Even leisure or non-essential activities may have played a role in survival. Archaeological findings suggest symbolic behaviors, such as the arrangement of objects or simple adornments, which could strengthen social bonds or signal group identity. Such behaviors indicate that Neanderthals balanced the immediate demands of survival with the maintenance of cultural and social structures. Challenges were constant. Frostbite, illness, predator encounters, and resource scarcity created demanding daily rhythm. Yet Neanderthals demonstrated adaptability, using ingenuity, experience, and cooperation to navigate these pressures. Every day required careful decision-making, from choosing hunting strategies to selecting shelter locations, to managing food distribution and group dynamics. Ultimately, Neanderthal daily life was defined by the integration of physical endurance, cognitive skill, and social intelligence. They managed extreme cold without constant fire, sustained themselves on limited seasonal resources, and maintained cohesive groups capable of surviving one of the harshest environments in human history. Their routines reveal a species that thrived not by accident, but through calculated strategies, learned behaviors, and persistent adaptation to an unforgiving Ice Age world. Neanderthal survival was deeply intertwined with social structure and community organization. Living in small, tight-knit groups, typically ranging from 10 to 30 individuals, Neanderthals relied on cooperation to navigate the harsh Ice Age environment. These communities were more than random gatherings. They were structured units where shared knowledge, coordinated labor, and mutual care determined the survival of every member. Leadership within Neanderthal groups was likely informal, but based on skill, experience, and respect. Elders and successful hunters held authority, not through dominance alone, but through the value of their knowledge. They guided hunting strategies, identified safe shelter sites, and passed down practical survival techniques. Decision-making appears to have been collaborative, with input from multiple members, reflecting a balance between authority and consensus in critical survival choices. Family relationships formed the backbone of social cohesion. Extended family networks facilitated division of labor, where adults hunted or foraged, and children learned essential skills through observation and practice. The presence of children and elders required intentional strategies for care, highlighting a culture of mutual support. Infants and young children likely benefited from shared warmth and protection, while elders contributed knowledge, storytelling, and teaching that ensured survival strategies persisted across generations. Cooperation was essential for hunting large game. A single hunter could not bring down mammoths, bison, or reindeer alone. Success depended on coordinated efforts. Teams would plan ambushes, drive herds toward traps, or engage in strategic attacks that minimized individual risk. These activities demanded trust, communication, and a shared understanding of environmental patterns and animal behavior. The ability to work collectively was a critical determinant of both short-term survival and long-term group stability. Sharing of resources further reinforced social bonds. Food, tools, and shelter were distributed in ways that ensured the survival of vulnerable members, such as children, the elderly, or the injured. Archaeological evidence of healed injuries indicates that Neanderthals cared for individuals over extended periods, often long after a person could contribute fully to hunting or foraging. This pattern of support reflects a society built on empathy, reciprocity, and the recognition that every individual's well-being influenced the group's overall survival. Social structures also shaped communication and knowledge transfer. While direct evidence of language is limited, vocalizations, gestures, and early symbolic behaviors likely played roles in coordinating activities and passing on critical survival information. Knowledge of migration routes, seasonal patterns, and resource locations required effective communication across the group. Storytelling or demonstration may have served as essential tools for teaching younger generations how to navigate the Ice Age world. Cultural cohesion extended beyond practical survival. Burial practices, symbolic arrangements, and the possible use of ornaments suggest that Neanderthals valued identity, memory, and group connection. These practices may have strengthened social ties, creating shared meaning that helped maintain morale during prolonged winters. The presence of symbolic artifacts alongside functional tools illustrates a dual focus on practical survival and social cohesion, blending necessity with cultural expression. Group mobility was another aspect of social strategy. Bands moved seasonally to follow prey, avoid resource depletion, or find more hospitable conditions. Coordination of movement required planning, communication, and cooperation, ensuring that the entire group traveled efficiently and safely. Mobility also reinforced social learning, as younger members observed and participated in decision-making processes essential to survival. Conflict management within groups was crucial. Limited resources and environmental stress could create tension, yet there is little evidence of widespread violence within Neanderthal communities. This suggests that social norms, cooperation, and conflict resolution strategies were effective in maintaining harmony. Maintaining strong interpersonal bonds reduced the risk of fragmentation and ensured collective strength against external threats such as predators or harsh weather. The interdependence of social roles, hunters, gatherers, caretakers, and knowledge keepers created a resilient network capable of responding to environmental challenges. Each role was critical, and the loss of skilled individuals could have significant consequences. Social structure, therefore, was not a static hierarchy but a dynamic system where adaptability, cooperation, and shared responsibility enabled the group to endure extreme conditions. In summary, Neanderthal communities exemplify the power of social organization in human evolution. Their survival depended not only on individual skill or physical strength, but on the cohesion, cooperation, and knowledge sharing within the group. Small, adaptive communities navigated a world of ice, snow, and scarce resources, demonstrating that social intelligence was as vital as any tool or physical adaptation. Understanding their social structure provides a window into the ways humans can endure and thrive in even the most challenging environments. Neanderthals demonstrated a remarkable capacity for innovation, both technological and cultural, which enabled them to survive and even thrive in harsh Ice Age environments. While their tools and cultural practices may appear rudimentary compared with modern standards, they were highly specialized and precisely adapted to the challenges of extreme cold, scarce resources, and dangerous landscapes. These innovations highlight the intelligence and adaptability of a species often underestimated in earlier research. Central to Neanderthal technology was the Mousterian toolkit, a highly sophisticated collection of stone implements. These tools were carefully crafted from flint, bone, and wood, each designed for specific purposes. Scrapers, points, and knives facilitated hunting, processing meat and working hides, while thrusting spears allowed for close-range hunting of large, dangerous prey. The precision and efficiency of these tools reflect planning and forethought. Neanderthals understood the properties of different materials, optimize cutting angles, and maintain tools through regular sharpening and repair. Beyond hunting, Neanderthal innovations extended to clothing and shelter construction. They used animal hides to protect against frostbite and hypothermia, likely layering skins and sewing them with bone needles or sharpened thorns. This form of textile innovation, though primitive compared with later fabrics, was crucial for survival in sub-zero conditions. In parallel, shelters were adapted to environmental challenges. Caves provided natural insulation, while open-air sites were reinforced with branches, hides, and rocks, demonstrating creative problem-solving in the absence of permanent fire structures. Evidence of fire use, though inconsistent, indicates that Neanderthals could harness this technology when possible. Hearths found in some sites were small, carefully maintained, and often relocated within caves. Fire offered warmth, a means to cook food, and a source of light during long winter nights. Even when fire was unavailable, Neanderthals compensated through layering clothing, huddling for warmth, and strategic selection of shelters, highlighting their flexibility and inventive problem-solving. Cultural practices also reflected innovation. Burial sites at Shanadar and La Chapelle aux Saints reveal intentional interment, sometimes accompanied by flowers or symbolic objects. These practices indicate a capacity for abstract thought, planning, and social ritual. The creation of symbolic artifacts, personal adornments, or arrangements of objects may have reinforced social cohesion, communicated group identity, or facilitated knowledge transfer, demonstrating that innovation extended beyond physical tools to intellectual and cultural domains. Neanderthals also developed specialized strategies for food acquisition and storage. Meat was often preserved through drying or refrigeration in cool shelters, while fat and marrow were maximized for caloric intake. Hunting techniques required knowledge of animal behavior, migration patterns, and seasonal timing, reflecting cognitive innovation alongside physical tools. Strategies such as ambush hunting, coordinated drives, and the use of terrain for advantage illustrate a level of planning and tactical sophistication that ensured the survival of the group. The integration of innovation into social life was evident in teaching and skill transmission. Younger members learned tool-making, hunting techniques, and survival strategies through observation, imitation, and hands-on practice. This educational structure ensured that knowledge persisted across generations, reinforcing both technological competence and cultural continuity. Innovations were not isolated achievements, but part of a collective intelligence that strengthened the group's adaptability. Neanderthal innovation also extended to resource management. Selection of sites near water sources, abundant game, and raw materials for tools and shelter reflects strategic thinking. They anticipated seasonal changes, stockpiled materials when possible, and adjusted mobility patterns to optimize survival. Even seemingly simple actions, like choosing a south-facing cave entrance or storing hides for winter clothing, demonstrate a practical intelligence finely attuned to the environment. Artistic or symbolic expression, though limited in scope, reflects cognitive innovation. Carvings, pigment use, and decorative arrangements may have communicated social identity or reinforced group cohesion. These behaviors indicate a sophisticated mental landscape capable of abstract thought and forward planning. They were not merely functional, but served psychological and social purposes, strengthening group resilience during periods of environmental stress. Ultimately, the technological and cultural innovations of Neanderthals illustrate a species highly adapted to its environment. Tools, clothing, shelters, hunting strategies, and symbolic practices worked in concert to meet the demands of survival. These innovations were not static. They evolved in response to changing climates, migration patterns, and social needs, demonstrating flexibility and ingenuity. By studying these innovations, we gain insight into how Neanderthals endured Ice Age winters, navigated complex ecosystems, and maintained resilient communities. The combination of practical tools, strategic problem-solving, and cultural practices allowed Neanderthals to survive in conditions that would have been lethal to many other species. Their innovations reflect not only physical adaptation but also cognitive and social sophistication, challenging earlier perceptions of Neanderthals as simple or unsophisticated. These achievements set the stage for understanding how they overcame extreme challenges and provide a foundation for exploring the strategies that allowed them to endure the Ice Age. Neanderthals developed a range of strategies to navigate the relentless challenges of the Ice Age. Survival depended not on a single approach, but on the integration of physical adaptation, cognitive skill, social cooperation, and environmental awareness. Each strategy was carefully calibrated to mitigate risk, conserve energy, and ensure the continued survival of the group in a world dominated by extreme cold, scarce resources, and predatory threats. One of the most fundamental strategies was mobility. Neanderthal groups were not permanently fixed to one location. Instead, they moved seasonally to follow migrating herds, track vegetation cycles, and locate water sources. This mobility reduced resource depletion in any single area and maximized access to diverse nutritional resources. It also allowed groups to avoid hazards such as glacial expansion, flooding, or predator concentrations. Moving as a cohesive unit required planning, communication, and an understanding of the terrain and weather patterns. Cooperation was another critical strategy. Hunting large game was impossible for an individual alone. Teams of hunters coordinated attacks using spears, driving techniques, and knowledge of animal behavior to reduce risk and increase success rates. Beyond hunting, cooperation extended to childcare, injury care, and shelter construction. Evidence of healed fractures and long-term care suggests that Neanderthals invested time and energy in supporting vulnerable members, understanding that the group's strength depended on the well-being of every individual. Thermal management strategies were essential in the absence of consistent fire. Neanderthals maximized natural insulation, using layered clothing made from animal hides and positioning themselves in caves or wind-protected shelters. Strategic huddling during sleep conserved body heat, while site selection such as south-facing cave entrances optimized solar warmth. In colder conditions, physical activity itself became a survival tactic, generating heat while performing necessary tasks like hunting or gathering firewood. Dietary strategies were equally sophisticated. High-calorie foods, particularly fat and marrow, provided the energy required to endure long, cold winters. Neanderthals diversified their diet with available plants, small game, and scavenged resources. Preservation techniques such as drying meat or storing food in naturally cool areas mitigated seasonal scarcity. Understanding which resources were renewable, which could be stored, and how to prioritize caloric intake reflects a nuanced approach to energy management. Shelter construction and selection were vital strategies. Neanderthals demonstrated an intuitive understanding of microclimates. Caves provided natural insulation and protection, while open-air sites were fortified with hides, rocks, and branches. Placement of sleeping areas, cooking zones, and tool storage within shelters maximized efficiency and minimized exposure to the elements. These arrangements were likely informed by observation, experimentation, and accumulated knowledge passed through generations. Tool use and maintenance formed another layer of adaptive strategy. Noetherian tools, crafted for precision and utility, were maintained, sharpened, and sometimes transported across long distances. Specialized tools for hunting, high preparation, and food processing ensured that Neanderthals could meet essential survival needs even in resource-limited conditions. The ability to repair and adapt tools for multiple purposes reflects cognitive flexibility and forward planning. Predator avoidance strategies were critical. Awareness of predator behaviors, strategic hunting times, and the use of shelters for protection minimized risk. Cooperation also played a role in defense. Groups could coordinate alarm systems, mob predators, or rely on early warning from sentinels. Knowledge of terrain, such as using cliffs, riverbanks, or dense thickets as natural barriers, further enhanced safety. Cultural strategies contributed to resilience as well. Burial practices, symbolic objects, and social rituals reinforced cohesion, strengthened identity, and maintained morale. These strategies were subtle but essential, helping groups endure psychological stress caused by isolation, environmental hazards, and the constant threat of mortality. Social cohesion became as vital to survival as physical adaptations. Knowledge transmission was another key strategy. Younger members learned survival skills through direct observation, participation, and instruction from experienced elders. Techniques for hunting, tracking, tool making, and food preservation were passed down, ensuring that each generation could adapt to environmental challenges. This cultural continuity reduced trial and error losses and enhanced group efficiency over time. Seasonal planning integrated multiple strategies. Neanderthals anticipated glacial changes, tracked prey migration, and timed shelter construction and resource storage to optimize survival. These strategies required a combination of observation, memory, and foresight, demonstrating advanced cognitive abilities. Flexibility was crucial. What worked in one season or location had to be adjusted in response to changing conditions. Ultimately, Neanderthals' survival strategies were holistic, blending physical, cognitive, and social approaches. No single tactic could guarantee endurance through Ice Age winters. Instead, survival relied on the interplay of mobility, cooperation, thermal management, dietary planning, shelter optimization, tool use, predator awareness, and cultural practices. Each strategy complemented the others, forming a robust system capable of sustaining life in one of the harshest environments encountered by early humans. These strategies illustrate that Neanderthals were not passive victims of their environment. They were active problem solvers capable of assessing risks, adapting behaviors, and innovating solutions. Their enduring presence in the Ice Age landscape reflects a species that mastered the art of survival through intelligence, cooperation, and ingenuity, a testament to the resilience of human adaptability. Neanderthal history, though often generalized as a continuous struggle for survival, was punctuated by significant events and turning points that shaped their adaptation to the Ice Age environment. These moments, ranging from innovations in toolmaking to strategic migrations and environmental shifts, demonstrate how they responded to challenges and refined their methods of survival over hundreds of thousands of years. One major turning point was the development and refinement of the Mousterian toolkit. Early Neanderthals had relied on simpler, less versatile tools, but the emergence of standardized flint and bone implements allowed them to hunt more effectively, process food with greater efficiency, and the ability to craft specialized points, scrapers, and knives transformed daily life, enabling greater adaptability in diverse environments. Archaeological evidence indicates that these tools evolved over time, reflecting a continuous process of problem-solving and innovation in response to practical challenges. Another critical event was the expansion into harsher climates during glacial periods. As glaciers advanced and temperatures dropped, Neanderthals migrated into regions that presented new environmental pressures. Survival in these extreme zones required innovations in clothing, shelter, and social coordination. Sites such as those in Northern Europe reveal evidence of complex shelters and preserved tools, suggesting that these migrations were not simply reactions to climate, but deliberate strategies to exploit available resources and maintain group stability despite the cold. The establishment of cooperative hunting strategies marks another turning point in Neanderthal adaptation. Archaeological findings show evidence of coordinated ambushers and group-driven hunting techniques, indicating not only physical skill but sophisticated planning, communication, and understanding of animal behavior. The ability to organize collectively and apply strategic approaches to hunting reflects a cognitive evolution in which social coordination became a decisive survival factor. Neanderthal dietary adaptation represents a turning point in their resilience. Evidence of careful selection of high-calorie foods, marrow extraction, and the use of fat for energy demonstrates a refined understanding of nutrition under extreme conditions. The occasional inclusion of plant resources indicates flexibility and innovation, enabling them to balance energy intake with seasonal availability. These dietary strategies allowed them to maintain strength, recover from injury, and survive prolonged periods of scarcity. Environmental fluctuations served as natural turning points, forcing Neanderthals to adapt their behavior and movement patterns. Rapid changes in weather, glacial retreat, or local scarcity of prey demanded flexibility in site selection and resource management. Successful adaptation required observation, memory, and intergenerational knowledge transfer, highlighting the importance of cultural continuity in navigating unpredictable Ice Age conditions. Interactions with other hominin species, though sporadic, may also have influenced Neanderthal evolution. While the evidence for direct contact or competition is limited, shared territories and potential resource overlap could have prompted refinements in hunting techniques, shelter strategies, and social coordination. Such encounters, whether cooperative or competitive, likely reinforced adaptive behaviors and problem-solving skills essential for survival. Technological milestones also represented key turning points. The introduction of hafted tools, for example, allowed Neanderthals to combine stone points with wooden handles, increasing the efficiency and range of hunting implements. This innovation not only improved hunting success, but also facilitated the processing of hides and construction of shelters. Each technological advance reflected both a response to environmental challenges and an enhancement of everyday survival capabilities. Cultural behaviors, including symbolic expression and burial practices, constitute another form of turning point. Intentional burials, sometimes accompanied by objects or flowers, reflect cognitive sophistication and social awareness. These practices reinforced group identity, provided psychological comfort, and may have strengthened cooperative behavior, indirectly supporting survival by enhancing social cohesion and morale during difficult periods. The adaptation to life without consistent fire is perhaps the most defining turning point in Neanderthal survival strategy. Fire was unpredictable and difficult to maintain in some regions, compelling Neanderthals to rely on natural insulation, social huddling, and physical activity to endure extreme cold. This constraint drove innovation in clothing, shelter, and cooperative behaviors, illustrating that limitations often catalyzed creative problem-solving. Ultimately, Neanderthal survival was shaped by a series of cumulative turning points rather than a single event. Each technological, environmental, and social adaptation built upon previous knowledge, enabling them to thrive despite formidable challenges. These events highlight a species defined not by vulnerability but by resilience, intelligence, and adaptability, a species that learned to navigate Ice Age conditions with remarkable effectiveness. Understanding these significant events provides insight into the broader trajectory of Neanderthal evolution. From tool refinement to strategic migrations, dietary innovation, and cultural development, each turning point reflects the ongoing negotiation between environmental pressures and human ingenuity. Collectively, these milestones reveal how Neanderthals endured for hundreds of thousands of years, leaving a legacy of adaptation that informs our understanding of early human resilience. Archaeological evidence provides a window into the daily lives, survival strategies, and cultural practices of Neanderthals. Excavations across Europe and Western Asia have uncovered a wealth of artifacts, skeletal remains, and environmental clues that collectively demonstrate how this species endured the harsh Ice Age world without the constant presence of fire. Each discovery sheds light on their adaptability, cognitive skills, and social structures. Stone tools are among the most abundant forms of evidence. Mousterian toolkits discovered in caves and open-air sites reveal a sophisticated understanding of material properties and functional design. Flint points and scrapers, meticulously shaped, indicate repeated use in hunting and hide processing. Marks on animal bones suggest systematic butchering techniques, including the extraction of marrow and removal of sinews for cordage. These tools not only reveal daily survival practices but also demonstrate forethought, precision, and an ability to adapt tools to specific environmental challenges. Skeletal remains offer further insight. Analysis of bones shows evidence of healed fractures, dental wear, and signs of malnutrition or disease. The prevalence of healed injuries indicates that Neanderthals cared for injured or incapacitated group members over extended periods, reflecting social cooperation and empathy. Skeletal morphology also suggests adaptations to cold climates, such as robust physics, wide nasal passages, and strong limb structures designed to conserve heat and withstand physically demanding tasks. These physical traits, combined with behavioral strategies, enhance survival in extreme environments. Shelter remains provide critical information about spatial organization and resource management. Archaeological sites show evidence of carefully selected cave locations and constructed windbreaks or partitions made from stone, wood, and animal hides. Hearths, when present, were small and strategically positioned, suggesting controlled use of fire rather than reliance on it for constant warmth. The arrangement of sleeping areas, food storage zones, and tool-making stations within shelters indicates thoughtful planning to optimize safety and efficiency. Evidence of clothing comes from indirect sources such as cut marks on bones and preserved impressions of hides. Neanderthals prepared animal skins for protection against cold, often using specialized tools to scrape, cut, and soften materials. Traces of fiber or cordage suggest sewing or tying techniques, indicating a complex understanding of insulation and durability. Clothing allowed them to maintain mobility and comfort despite sub-zero temperatures, complementing physical adaptations to the cold. Dietary evidence also contributes to understanding survival strategies. Animal bones with cut marks, charred remains, and isotopic analysis reveal a diet high in protein and fat, supplemented by plant resources when available. Seasonal patterns of prey and plant use suggest careful planning and knowledge of ecological cycles. Marrow extraction, fat consumption, and possible storage strategies indicate an advanced understanding of energy requirements and nutritional optimization for long, harsh winters. Symbolic and cultural artifacts provide insight into cognitive and social behavior. Burials at sites such as Shenadar, La Chapelle aux Saints, and Kebara demonstrate intentional interment, sometimes accompanied by flowers or personal objects. These practices suggest a sense of social identity, ritual, or symbolic thought, reinforcing the cohesion and morale of communities. Artifacts like personal adornments, pigments, or carvings indicate not only creativity, but also communication and shared meaning within groups. Environmental data collected from sediment layers, pollen, and faunal remains help reconstruct Ice Age habitats. These records show fluctuations in climate, glacial movements, and vegetation changes, allowing researchers to correlate Neanderthal adaptations with environmental pressures. For instance, evidence of seasonal animal migrations informs our understanding of hunting strategies, while soil and pollen data clarify how Neanderthals managed plant resources and selected settlement sites. Isotopic and genetic analyses further support evidence of mobility and dietary adaptation. Isotopic signatures in bones reveal a reliance on animal protein, while genetic studies provide insights into population dispersal, interbreeding with other hominins, and evolutionary adaptations. These data reinforce conclusions drawn from artifacts and skeletal remains, offering a comprehensive view of Neanderthal resilience and survival mechanisms. Overall, archaeology paints a picture of a species finely attuned to its environment. Tools, shelters, clothing, dietary evidence, and symbolic artifacts collectively demonstrate strategic problem-solving, social cohesion, and adaptability. Neanderthals were not passive participants in their environment. They actively shaped their survival through a combination of physical skill, innovation, and cultural practice. By examining these records, Historians and archaeologists can reconstruct a detailed understanding of how Neanderthals endured Ice Age winters without relying exclusively on fire. The evidence underscores their intelligence, resilience, and social sophistication, revealing a species capable of thriving under conditions that would challenge any hominin group. Archaeology, in essence, provides both the physical and contextual foundation for appreciating the full scope of Neanderthal endurance, ingenuity, and humanity. Comparing Neanderthals with other hominin species in later human societies provides critical insight into their unique adaptations, survival strategies, and cultural behaviors. While often overshadowed by Homo sapiens in popular imagination, Neanderthals developed a set of skills and social structures specifically suited to the Ice Age environment, demonstrating both similarities and striking differences with contemporaneous and subsequent populations. One primary comparison is with early Homo sapiens. Both species relied on cooperative hunting, tool-making, and social networks for survival, but differences in technology and cultural expression are notable. Homo sapiens developed more complex projectile weapons, including bows and arrows, which allowed for safer and longer-range hunting, whereas Neanderthals relied primarily on thrusting spears and close-range ambush tactics. While Neanderthals demonstrated precision in tool-making and adaptability to local environments, Homo sapiens tools often exhibited greater variety, portability, and specialization. This difference reflects divergent evolutionary responses to similar challenges, with each species optimizing survival according to its physical and cognitive strengths. Neanderthals also differed in their approach to mobility and settlement. Whereas Homo sapiens often exhibited broader migratory patterns and established more permanent settlements, Neanderthals moved in smaller localized bands. Their mobility was strategic, closely tied to seasonal availability of prey and the need for thermal protection. This limited range of movement, combined with their dense cooperative social units, fostered intensive knowledge of specific territories, enabling them to exploit local resources effectively. In contrast, Homo sapiens' wider dispersal often necessitated a greater reliance on generalist survival strategies. Dietary comparisons reveal both overlap and distinction. Neanderthals were predominantly carnivorous, heavily relying on large game, while Homo sapiens incorporated a broader range of plant and animal resources. Isotopic analyses indicate that Neanderthals adapted to calorically dense diets to sustain their robust physiques in extreme cold. Homo sapiens' more varied diet, however, allowed for greater flexibility in environments with fluctuating prey availability. Despite these differences, both species developed methods of food preservation, seasonal hunting, and resource planning, highlighting convergent strategies for energy management under challenging conditions. Social structure and community organization also present contrasts. Neanderthal groups were small, highly interdependent, and centered on shared knowledge and cooperation for survival. Evidence of care for the injured in collaborative hunting demonstrates strong social cohesion. Homo sapiens, while also socially cooperative, exhibited more hierarchical structures in certain contexts, potentially reflecting larger population sizes and more complex social networks. Neanderthals' smaller communities may have facilitated direct knowledge transfer and tight group cohesion, whereas Homo sapiens' social networks allowed for broader cultural exchange and innovation. Technological innovation provides another point of comparison. Neanderthals' Mousterian toolkit was highly specialized, but largely static over long periods. In contrast, Homo sapiens demonstrated continuous refinement and diversification of tools, eventually developing long-range hunting technology, composite tools, and symbolic artifacts with complex designs. This comparison suggests that Neanderthals excelled in optimizing existing technologies for immediate survival, whereas Homo sapiens placed greater emphasis on cumulative innovation and experimentation over time. Comparing Neanderthals with later human societies, such as Upper Paleolithic cultures, further highlights differences in symbolic and cultural behavior. Neanderthals engaged in ritualized burials and produced simple symbolic artifacts, indicating abstract thought and social awareness. However, later Homo sapiens cultures expanded symbolic expression through art, ornamentation, and more elaborate ritual practices. These differences reflect both environmental pressures and cognitive divergence, as Neanderthals focused on pragmatic survival, while Homo sapiens' cultural complexity flourished alongside growing population sizes and resource availability. Environmental adaptation also distinguishes Neanderthals from other hominins. Their robust physiques, broad chests, and limb proportions were highly specialized for cold climates, conserving heat and maximizing strength for hunting large prey. Comparatively, early Homo sapiens had leaner builds, better suited for endurance in diverse climates. Neanderthals' physiological adaptations allowed them to survive in extreme, northern latitudes and glacial environments that would have been challenging for less specialized populations. Predation risk management provides further comparative insight. Both Neanderthals and Homo sapiens needed strategies to mitigate threats from large carnivores. Neanderthals relied on strategic shelter selection, cooperative hunting, and close-range defense, while Homo sapiens used projectile technology and broader social networks to reduce individual exposure. These strategies reflect differences in physical capability, technological adaptation, and group coordination. Finally, Neanderthals' resilience highlights a broader evolutionary lesson. Unlike many contemporaneous species that disappeared, Neanderthals thrived in Ice Age Europe for hundreds of thousands of years. While ultimately their lineage ended, their ability to survive extreme conditions without consistent fire, sophisticated agriculture, or long-distance trade underscores their adaptability and intelligence. Comparisons with other groups emphasize that survival is context-specific. Neanderthals were exceptionally well adapted to their environment, even if they did not develop the long-term technological or cultural innovations of Homo sapiens. In conclusion, Neanderthals' comparison with other groups illuminates a balance of similarities and differences that shaped their success. While their technology, social structures, and cultural practices were tailored to immediate environmental pressures, Homo sapiens often pursued broader innovation, mobility, and symbolic expression. By studying these comparisons, we gain a clearer understanding of Neanderthal resilience, adaptation, and the unique strategies that allowed them to endure some of the harshest conditions in human history. Neanderthal cultural practices provide a window into the social and cognitive life of a species often portrayed as purely pragmatic. While their daily existence centered on survival in harsh Ice Age conditions, archaeological evidence demonstrates that they engaged in behaviors reflecting social cohesion, symbolic thought, and ritualized activity. These practices, while modest compared to later human cultures, were integral to group identity and resilience. Burial practices are the most widely cited example of Neanderthal cultural ritual. Sites such as Shanidar in Iraq, La Chapelle-aux-Saints in France, and Kabara in Israel reveal deliberate interment of deceased individuals. Bodies were often placed in specific orientations within caves, sometimes accompanied by objects such as stones, animal bones, or flowers. The inclusion of floral arrangements in particular suggests symbolic understanding, possibly representing respect, remembrance, or spiritual belief. These intentional burials indicate that Neanderthals recognized death as a significant social and perhaps spiritual event, reflecting empathy and communal care. Symbolic artifacts, while rare, also suggest abstract cognitive abilities. Pigments such as red ochre have been found in association with tools or personal items, hinting at the use of color for personal adornment, social signaling, or ritual purposes. Some Neanderthal sites include carvings or etched patterns on bones and stones. While the full meaning remains speculative, these artifacts imply a capacity for communication beyond the immediate practical needs of survival. They may have conveyed group identity, achievements, or even narratives, contributing to social cohesion and shared cultural memory. Neanderthal care for the living reflects another aspect of their cultural practices. Skeletal remains show healed injuries, sometimes severe, indicating that injured individuals were supported over long periods. Such behavior suggests that Neanderthals adhered to social norms emphasizing mutual assistance. This cultural emphasis on caregiving would have enhanced group survival by ensuring that knowledge, skills, and social cohesion were maintained even when some members were temporarily incapacitated. Tool-making and resource management were also intertwined with cultural behavior. Techniques for shaping Mousterian tools, preparing hides, and constructing shelters were likely taught through social learning, observation, and imitation. These practices represent a form of ritualized training, where knowledge transfer occurred within culturally recognized frameworks. By formalizing methods for production and survival, Neanderthals created structured systems that ensured continuity and efficiency across generations. Hunting and food-sharing practices further illustrate cultural norms. Evidence suggests coordinated hunting strategies, with roles assigned within groups to maximize efficiency. Large prey were shared among group members, not consumed solely by hunters, reflecting ethical or social expectations about resource distribution. Such behavior reinforced social bonds, minimized conflict, and contributed to collective survival, highlighting the interplay between practical needs and culturally mediated behavior. Spatial organization within shelters also reflects cultural priorities. Designated areas for sleeping, tool-making, and food processing indicate that Neanderthals understood the social significance of shared spaces. Separation of work and rest areas minimized hazards, increased efficiency, and provided a sense of order within communities. These spatial norms likely carried cultural meaning, reinforcing group cohesion and establishing routines that facilitated both physical and psychological well-being. Neanderthals' engagement with natural elements may have had ritual significance. Evidence of flower placement, pigment use, and structured arrangements of objects implies that symbolic interaction with the environment was part of their cultural repertoire. While concrete evidence of formalized religious beliefs is lacking, these behaviors suggest early forms of spiritual or symbolic expression, demonstrating that Neanderthals interpreted and interacted with the world through more than survival imperatives alone. Social play, though less visible archaeologically, likely played a role in cultural development. Observations of modern hunter-gatherer groups suggest that children and young adults engage in games, imitation, and ritualized practice as a means of learning skills and social norms. It is plausible that Neanderthals used similar methods to transmit knowledge of hunting, tool-making, and survival strategies, combining learning with communal activity. Finally, cultural continuity was reinforced through intergenerational teaching. The careful transmission of tool-making techniques, dietary knowledge, and social norms suggests that culture was not static but adaptive. Knowledge of past generations informed decisions about hunting, shelter, clothing, and care for the injured, ensuring that survival strategies were preserved, refined, and enhanced over time. In summary, Neanderthal cultural beliefs and rituals were multifaceted, encompassing death practices, symbolic expression, social norms, and educational traditions. While their material culture may appear modest compared with later human societies, it played a critical role in survival, social cohesion, and identity formation. By studying these practices, we gain insight into the intellectual and emotional life of a species capable of complex thought, empathy, and shared meaning, revealing a Neanderthal world that was both practical and profoundly human. Neanderthal health and lifestyle were closely tied to their environment, survival strategies, and social organization. Living in Ice Age Europe and Western Asia exposed them to extreme cold, periodic food scarcity, and the constant threat of injury from hunting large prey and defending against predators. Yet, Evidence from skeletal remains, isotopic analysis, and archaeological sites demonstrates that Neanderthals were remarkably resilient, adapting both physically and socially to maintain their health over long lifespans relative to environmental constraints. Physically, Neanderthals were robust and well-suited to cold climates. Their stocky builds, broad chests, and short, powerful limbs conserved heat and maximized strength, making them efficient hunters and capable of enduring long periods of exposure to freezing temperatures. Wide nasal passages may have helped warm cold air before it reached the lungs, while their muscular bodies allowed for carrying heavy loads, running short distances in hunting ambushes, and enduring physically demanding tasks such as tool making, hide processing, and shelter construction. These physiological traits were a first line of defense against environmental challenges. Diet and nutrition were central to their health. High-protein, high-fat diets, primarily from large herbivores, provided the caloric density needed to fuel physically demanding lives. Evidence from isotopic studies shows that Neanderthals had a predominantly meat-based diet, though they supplemented with seasonal plants, nuts, and small game when available. Marrow extraction, fat consumption, and preservation of meat extended nutritional resources during lean seasons. These dietary strategies supported not only survival, but physical robustness, bone strength, and energy levels required for hunting and mobility. Injury management and care were critical aspects of Neanderthal health. Skeletal analysis reveals frequent fractures, many of which healed, indicating that injured individuals received long-term support. This social care included immobilization, protection from further injury, and possibly the provision of food by healthy group members. Such practices highlight a social dimension to health that complemented physical adaptation, ensuring that knowledge, skill, and leadership within the group were preserved despite periods of vulnerability. Life expectancy, while lower than modern standards, suggests a capacity for endurance. Many Neanderthals lived into their 40s or 50s, with some individuals reaching even older ages despite harsh conditions. Survivors of multiple injuries and evidence of chronic conditions, such as arthritis or dental wear, show resilience and adaptability. The combination of strong social networks, knowledge of medicinal plants, and careful attention to diet likely contributed to sustaining life in such demanding environments. Disease and infection were present, but managed through social support and adaptive behaviors. Skeletal evidence shows signs of osteomyelitis, dental abscesses, and joint inflammation. These conditions were debilitating without medical intervention. Yet Neanderthals' capacity to care for afflicted individuals reflects both knowledge and empathy. Dietary supplementation and avoidance of certain high-risk behaviors, such as overexertion during extreme cold, may have also reduced vulnerability to illness. Sleep and rest were influenced by environmental constraints. Without consistent use of fire, Neanderthals relied on shelters, layered clothing, and huddling for warmth. Strategic site selection caves, rock overhangs, or wind-protected locations provided natural insulation and safety. These practices suggest that Neanderthals understood the importance of conserving energy, managing fatigue, and creating conditions that minimized exposure to cold stress, demonstrating an integration of environmental awareness with daily routines. Physical activity was both a necessity and a health strategy. Hunting, tool-making, and gathering required endurance, coordination, and strength. Movement through rugged terrain, climbing, and hauling resources contributed to cardiovascular and muscular fitness. While these activities carried the risk of injury, they were essential for acquiring nutrition and sustaining life in extreme conditions. Physical exertion also generated body heat, complementing other thermal strategies in cold environments. Hygiene and disease prevention were likely rudimentary but significant. Evidence of processed hides and careful handling of food suggests an awareness of contamination risks. Regular maintenance of tools, clothing, and shelters may have indirectly contributed to health by reducing exposure to pathogens and parasites. Even minor practices such as relocating waste away from living areas or selecting clean water sources would have enhanced long-term survival and reduced disease transmission. Psychological well-being, though harder to measure, was also influenced by lifestyle and social structures. Cooperative hunting, group care, and cultural rituals likely provided emotional support, reinforced social bonds, and mitigated stress. These social and cultural mechanisms enhanced resilience, allowing individuals to endure the psychological demands of isolation, environmental hazards, and repeated physical challenges. In conclusion, Neanderthal health and lifestyle represent a balance of physical adaptation, dietary strategy, social care, and environmental awareness. Their robust bodies, high-calorie diets, cooperative networks, and adaptive behaviors allowed them to survive and thrive in Ice Age conditions. By integrating physiological, nutritional, and social strategies, Neanderthals maintained not only physical strength, but also community cohesion and resilience, demonstrating a comprehensive approach to health that was crucial for enduring extreme climates over hundreds of thousands of years. The survival strategies, cultural practices, and biological adaptations of Neanderthals left a lasting legacy that extends into the history of Homo sapiens and modern humans. While Neanderthals themselves eventually disappeared around 40,000 years ago, their influence on future generations is detectable in both genetic inheritance and the broader understanding of human resilience and adaptation to extreme environments. Their endurance in Ice Age conditions, combined with cognitive and social sophistication, set important precedents for subsequent human evolution. Genetic studies have revealed that modern non-African human populations carry approximately 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA. This genetic contribution influences traits ranging from immune system responses to metabolism and adaptation to cold climates. For instance, certain Neanderthal-derived alleles enhance the body's ability to respond to pathogens, contributing to disease resistance. Other inherited genetic variations impact skin and hair characteristics, reflecting the Neanderthals' physiological adaptations to northern latitudes. In this way, Neanderthals shaped the biological foundation of survival for future human populations, leaving a measurable imprint on the human genome. Neanderthal technological innovations also influenced future generations. The refinement of Mousterian tools demonstrated advanced understanding of materials, precision shaping, and problem solving. These approaches to toolmaking informed subsequent Homo sapiens toolkits, laying the groundwork for more complex technologies, including composite tools and projectile weapons. The concept of carefully crafting and maintaining tools for efficiency and durability persisted through generations, demonstrating that Neanderthal innovation had practical relevance beyond their immediate survival. Cultural practices of Neanderthals contributed to social frameworks that influenced later humans. Burial rituals, symbolic use of pigments, and personal ornamentation highlight early forms of social and spiritual awareness, while later human societies developed more elaborate symbolic and religious practices. These foundational behaviors illustrate that social cohesion, ritual, and expression were essential to community survival. Understanding these early cultural mechanisms helps modern scholars trace the evolution of human morality, empathy, and shared meaning, showing that social structures were as crucial as physical adaptations for enduring harsh conditions. The lessons of Neanderthal adaptation are particularly evident in environmental resilience. Neanderthals endured repeated glacial cycles, fluctuating climates, and scarcity of resources without agriculture or permanent settlements. Their strategies, flexible migration patterns, shelter construction, diet optimization, and social cooperation demonstrate principles of resource management, risk mitigation, and energy conservation that informed later survival strategies. Homo sapiens, entering overlapping environments, could observe or independently develop similar practices, suggesting that knowledge of survival in extreme conditions was both iterative and cumulative across species. Neanderthal social organization also influenced future human populations indirectly. Their emphasis on cooperative hunting, caregiving, and knowledge transmission created a model for the value of group cohesion and intergenerational learning. These practices allowed skills, survival knowledge, and cultural norms to be preserved and refined. Later, human groups expanded these principles, increasing population sizes, developing complex hierarchies, and transmitting culture on a larger scale. But the core idea of shared responsibility for survival can be traced to the social practices of Neanderthals. Cognitive and problem-solving abilities demonstrated by Neanderthals also impacted future generations, both genetically and culturally. Their capacity to innovate, adapt tools to specific tasks, and respond strategically to environmental challenges provides insight into the development of abstract thought. Later humans built upon these cognitive strategies, applying similar problem-solving frameworks to more diverse and demanding scenarios. In essence, Neanderthals' solutions to Ice Age challenges created cognitive templates that would inform human ingenuity for tens of thousands of years. Interactions between Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens further facilitated impact on future generations. Archaeological evidence of overlapping territories suggests periods of contact, resource sharing, and possibly cultural exchange. While the precise nature of these interactions remains debated, interbreeding events contributed to the genetic legacy of modern humans. Additionally, exposure to Neanderthal hunting techniques, shelter construction, and social behaviors may have influenced emerging Homo sapiens populations, indirectly shaping the trajectory of human adaptation. Even the eventual disappearance of Neanderthals offers lessons for future generations. Their extinction underscores the limits of adaptation under persistent environmental pressure and the importance of cumulative innovation, broader population networks, and environmental flexibility. Studying their survival strategies, successes, and failures provides a framework for understanding human resilience, emphasizing the need for social cohesion, technological advancement, and strategic resource management. In conclusion, Neanderthals' impact on future generations is multifaceted, encompassing genetic inheritance, technological influence, cultural practices, cognitive strategies, and lessons in environmental resilience. Their adaptations to extreme climates, social structures, and problem-solving approaches informed the evolutionary path of Homo sapiens and continue to resonate in the biological, cultural, and psychological traits of modern humans. Far from being an isolated or primitive population, Neanderthals contributed enduring elements to the survival toolkit of humanity, shaping the foundation upon which future generations would navigate a world of ever-changing challenges. The study of Neanderthals provides modern audiences with a profound understanding of resilience, adaptation, and social cooperation. Though separated from us by tens of thousands of years, their experiences during the Ice Age offer lessons that are still relevant today. From environmental management to social behavior, Neanderthals exemplify strategies that allowed a species to survive under conditions that would challenge even the most well-equipped human societies. One of the primary lessons concerns adaptability. Neanderthals thrived in environments with extreme cold, limited resources, and fluctuating conditions. Their ability to modify tools, clothing, and shelter demonstrates the importance of responding creatively to challenges rather than relying on a single strategy. For modern audiences, this underscores the value of flexibility and innovation when facing changing circumstances, whether environmental, economic, or social. Adaptation, both physical and behavioral, proved essential to survival. Another takeaway is the importance of social cohesion and cooperation. Neanderthals lived in small groups that depended on shared knowledge, collaborative hunting, and mutual care. Evidence of healing, food sharing, and group rituals shows that no individual could survive alone. This principle resonates today, illustrating that collaboration, empathy, and communal support are crucial in overcoming challenges in both professional and personal contexts. Working together strengthens resilience and allows collective problem solving that is more effective than isolated effort. Resource management provides a further lesson. Neanderthals carefully utilized seasonal resources, optimized hunting strategies, and prepared clothing and shelter to mitigate harsh winters. Their reliance on high-calorie diets, strategic site selection, and knowledge of ecological cycles demonstrates a calculated approach to resource use. Modern societies can learn from this careful planning. Sustainability, foresight, and efficient allocation of resources remain critical for long-term survival and well-being. Understanding the cycles of nature, much like Neanderthals did, is vital for managing environmental, economic, and social resources responsibly. The Neanderthal emphasis on knowledge transmission offers insight into education and mentorship. Skills such as tool-making, hunting techniques, and high preparation were likely passed from one generation to the next through observation and practice. The deliberate transfer of knowledge ensured the survival of essential skills and promoted group cohesion. Today, this highlights the importance of mentorship, structured learning, and preserving cultural and practical knowledge. Passing on expertise strengthens communities, fosters innovation, and ensures that valuable skills are not lost over time. Neanderthals also demonstrate the balance between physical and cognitive resilience. Their robust physiology enabled survival in extreme climates, while cognitive strategies, planning hunts, constructing shelters, and engaging in symbolic practices allowed them to thrive despite environmental constraints. This combination illustrates that survival is multidimensional. Physical preparedness, mental flexibility, and strategic thinking are equally essential. Modern audiences can apply this principle by nurturing both body and mind, recognizing that adaptability is rooted in integration of skills, knowledge, and emotional intelligence. Health and lifestyle practices are another area of practical takeaway. Neanderthals managed injuries, maintained nutrition, and optimized daily routines to endure harsh conditions. While modern medicine and technology have drastically altered human health practices, the principle of proactive care preparing for challenges, tending to injuries, and maintaining physical readiness remains valuable. Preventative strategies, structured routines, and awareness of environmental risks mirror Neanderthal approaches in contemporary life. Cultural practices and symbolic behavior offer lessons in identity, morale, and community building. Burial rituals, use of pigments, and personal ornamentation suggest that Neanderthals valued social connection, memory, and shared meaning. Modern audiences can learn that survival is not purely physical. Maintaining social bonds, cultural expression, and emotional resilience is crucial for long-term well-being. Rituals, traditions, and shared values help groups navigate challenges collectively and provide a sense of purpose beyond immediate survival needs. Finally, Neanderthals teach the importance of environmental awareness. They understood seasonal patterns, animal migrations, and local climates, using this knowledge to guide decision-making. Today, this principle applies to climate awareness, urban planning, agriculture, and sustainable living. Observing natural patterns and planning accordingly remains a key strategy for navigating environmental uncertainty. Neanderthal practices demonstrate that success often depends on careful observation and responsiveness to one's surroundings. In conclusion, the life and survival strategies of Neanderthals provide enduring lessons for modern audiences. Adaptability, social cohesion, resource management, knowledge transmission. Integrated physical and cognitive resilience, health awareness, cultural engagement, and environmental understanding are all principles that emerge from studying this species. By examining how Neanderthals endured extreme conditions without modern technology or infrastructure, we gain insights into the core human capacities for survival, cooperation, and innovation. These lessons reinforce that resilience is multifaceted, requiring not only physical strength, but also social intelligence, cultural insight, and strategic foresight. Understanding Neanderthals allows us to appreciate the foundations of human ingenuity and offers guidance for confronting challenges in contemporary life. From environmental crises to societal stressors, the story of Neanderthals is a profound testament to resilience, adaptation, and the ingenuity of a species often misunderstood in popular imagination. Over hundreds of thousands of years, these humans navigated an Ice Age world of extreme cold, scarce resources, and persistent environmental uncertainty. They developed strategies, both physical and social, that allowed them to endure conditions that would have overwhelmed many other species. Reflecting on their lives provides not only a historical understanding, but also a lens through which modern audiences can examine the fundamentals of human survival, cooperation, and cultural development. Physically, Neanderthals were optimized for endurance in harsh climates. Their muscular, robust bodies, short limbs, and broad chests conserved heat, while wide nasal passages helped condition cold air. These adaptations, combined with careful shelter selection and layering of clothing, allowed them to survive winters that would have been lethal without deliberate preparation. Their physiology, far from being primitive, was the product of hundreds of thousands of years of evolution fine-tuned for Ice Age Europe and Western Asia. Understanding these adaptations deepens our appreciation for the human capacity to respond to environmental pressures through biological specialization. Beyond the physical, Neanderthals demonstrated sophisticated social organization. Small, tightly knit groups relied on cooperative hunting, shared childcare, and mutual support for survival. Evidence of healed injuries and long-term care indicates that they valued empathy and collective responsibility, ensuring that even vulnerable members contributed to and benefited from the community. This emphasis on cooperation highlights that survival in extreme conditions is as much a social challenge as a physical one. Modern societies can draw parallels in understanding how networks of care, collaboration, and shared knowledge enhance resilience and long-term success. Cultural practices and symbolic behavior further illuminate Neanderthal intelligence. Burial rituals, the use of pigments, and simple ornamentation suggest recognition of mortality, social identity, and aesthetic or symbolic expression. These behaviors imply a level of abstract thought and emotional depth, reinforcing that Neanderthals were not merely reactive beings focused on immediate survival. Their capacity for cultural reflection and ritual practice adds a layer of complexity to our understanding of human evolution, revealing that even in the harshest environments, symbolic and social expression remained a core aspect of life. Technological innovation played a central role in Neanderthal survival. The Mousterian toolkit, characterized by precision and adaptability, reflects deliberate problem-solving and forward planning. Tools were not only functional but crafted with knowledge of local materials, demonstrating an awareness of efficiency and durability. These practices highlight the importance of technological competence in sustaining life, illustrating that survival was not reliant solely on brute strength but on ingenuity, observation, and learned skills. The impact of Neanderthals on future generations, including Homo sapiens, underscores their enduring legacy. Genetic contributions persist in modern humans, influencing immune responses, metabolism, and adaptation to environmental conditions. Social and technological lessons, from cooperative strategies to tool-making techniques, informed human evolution even as Neanderthals themselves disappeared. Their life strategies serve as a blueprint for understanding the interplay between biology, culture, and environment in shaping survival. Environmental awareness was also a hallmark of Neanderthal life. They carefully observed seasonal changes, animal migrations, and climatic shifts, using this knowledge to plan hunting, shelter placement, and resource storage. Such attentiveness highlights the importance of learning from and interacting with one's environment strategically. Modern parallels exist in sustainability practices, climate adaptation, and natural resource management, illustrating that responsiveness to environmental conditions is a timeless component of human survival. Reflecting on Neanderthals' daily life also provides perspective on human creativity and problem-solving. Their methods of managing cold, injuries, and resource scarcity reveal an integration of physical adaptation, social cooperation, and cognitive planning. They optimized their environment, engaged in teaching and learning within the group, and maintained social and cultural practices that reinforced group cohesion. These strategies, though developed under extreme conditions, exemplify core principles of resilience that remain relevant in modern life. The disappearance of Neanderthals serves as a sobering reminder of the limits of adaptation. While they were highly successful in specific ecological niches, the combination of climatic shifts, competition with Homo sapiens, and potential disease pressures ultimately led to their extinction. Studying these factors emphasizes the importance of flexibility, innovation, and social networks in sustaining populations. It also provides cautionary insight for contemporary challenges, from climate change to public health crises, underscoring that even highly capable groups are vulnerable without adaptive strategies. In conclusion, the Neanderthal story is a narrative of endurance, intelligence, and community. Their lives reflect the intersection of biological adaptation, technological ingenuity, social cooperation, and cultural expression. By examining their strategies, achievements, and limitations, we gain a deeper understanding of the foundational qualities that enable survival in extreme conditions. Modern audiences can draw lessons in resilience, resourcefulness, and the value of community, applying these insights to challenges both environmental and societal. Neanderthals were not merely an extinct species. They were innovators, caregivers, and adaptable humans whose legacy continues to inform our understanding of survival, humanity, and the enduring capacity to thrive against adversity. As the story of the Neanderthals draws to a close, the audience is invited to reflect not only on their remarkable survival, but on the quiet lessons embedded in their lives. Imagine a snow-laden landscape, the wind rustling across a frozen valley, where the skeletal forms of cave entrances stand like sentinels of the past. In the dim light of the pale winter sun, a Neanderthal family huddles together, layered in furs and animal hides, working meticulously to preserve warmth, sharing a sparse meal, and caring for a young child who has barely begun to walk. Their breath forms clouds in the freezing air, but inside the cave, the group's cooperation, ingenuity, and empathy generate a warmth that fire alone could not create. This scene captures the duality of their existence. Extreme environmental hardship coupled with profound social resilience. Neanderthals faced winters that would have broken lesser adapted creatures, yet their lives were not defined solely by suffering. Instead, they reveal a balance between vulnerability and capability, demonstrating that even in the harshest of conditions, intelligence, planning, and empathy could foster survival. As viewers visualize this tableau, they are encouraged to contemplate the unseen threads that bound these individuals together, the subtle care of the injured, the knowledge passed from elder to child, and the shared strategies that ensured collective endurance. The frozen landscape, silent but alive with evidence of human activity, emphasizes a deeper connection between Neanderthals and their environment. Every footprint in the snow, every scrape of a stone tool, and every fur-lined shelter tells a story of adaptation and interaction with the natural world. By envisioning this interplay, audiences gain insight into how humans, past and present, are inextricably linked to their surroundings. Survival was not just a matter of brute strength. It was the product of careful observation, strategic planning, and an intimate understanding of the environment. A subtle visual focus on small details deepens this reflection. A partially sharpened stone tool resting on a ledge, a child reaching for a piece of fur, or the faint outlines of animal tracks across the icy terrain, all provide a tangible sense of the Neanderthals' daily reality. These details suggest that life, while physically demanding, was structured, intentional, and imbued with meaning. Such imagery encouraged the audience to recognize the intelligence and foresight required for life in an unforgiving climate, highlighting the combination of physical skill, cultural practice, and problem-solving that define Neanderthal existence. The human qualities of Neanderthals are central to the closing reflection. Their empathy, teaching, and ritualistic behaviors, though subtle, indicate an awareness of mortality, community, and identity. Visualizing an elder guiding a youth in tool-making, or the careful arrangement of flowers in a burial site, conveys lessons that transcend time. It reminds viewers that intelligence and care for others are not modern inventions, but fundamental aspects of what it means to be human. These moments encourage contemplation of how human resilience is cultivated through both social structures and personal ingenuity. As the final scene widens to a panoramic view, the harsh Ice Age landscape extends toward distant mountains, frozen rivers, and endless horizons. The Neanderthal family is a small but vital presence within this vast environment, emphasizing both the fragility and determination of life. This perspective invites viewers to reflect on the scale of the challenges they faced and the creativity required to endure them. It encouraged modern audiences to consider not only survival in extreme conditions, but the broader human capacity for innovation, empathy, and community building in the face of adversity. A thought-provoking question emerges naturally from this visualization. What can modern humans learn from a species that survived for hundreds of thousands of years without modern technology, heating, or written knowledge? The audience is prompted to reflect on the principles of adaptation, social cohesion, and environmental awareness that enabled Neanderthals to endure. This question bridges past and present, suggesting that fundamental strategies for survival and community remain relevant, regardless of time or technological advancement. In closing, the visual and emotional focus rests on continuity and legacy. The ice, stone, and snow are not lifeless. They carry the marks of an intelligent, adaptive species whose choices, relationships, and cultural practices contributed to survival across generations. Viewers are invited to leave with a renewed appreciation for the resourcefulness, empathy, and ingenuity of Neanderthals, and the recognition that these qualities remain foundational for humanity today. The final imagery, blending environmental grandeur with intimate human action, provides a moment of reflection, Survival is not merely a matter of enduring harsh conditions, but thriving through intelligence, cooperation, and cultural understanding. This contemplative close ties together the narrative's key themes: physical adaptation, social cohesion, cultural practice, and environmental awareness, while leaving a lasting impression. By presenting the Neanderthals' lives as both extraordinary and profoundly human, the audience is encouraged to draw parallels with modern challenges, appreciating that the principles guiding survival and resilience are timeless. The closing visual is not just a retrospective, but an invitation to internalize the lessons of endurance, cooperation, and ingenuity, inspiring reflection on how humanity continues to navigate the complexities of life today.